Welcome back to another episode of the Sky Society podcast. Today, I am so excited to be chatting with Chelsea Van de Kamp. She does brand marketing, specifically menu innovation at Chipotle. Welcome, Chelsea.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Very excited to be chatting with you today and to go into your story. We're going to go into Chelsea's entire career journey from when she was working at Decker, working on UGG Australia, to Bear, and then now over to Chipotle. And we'll kind of end on your title, which is super, super unique, doing food and beverage innovation at Chipotle. Actually, just had Chipotle today. Actually, right before I had my leftovers for breakfast.
Oh my God. That's the best part about it, right? You just
The
getting
best.
food, it lasts you forever.
Yes. It was so funny when I moved to Austin. My family, the Chipotle really close to me in my hometown, Huntington Beach, and we'd go there all the time. When I moved to Austin, Chipotle was like my little safe space that I would always go back to. Of like, this kind of
Yeah,
feels like home because this is what I always had when I was home.
right. I think everyone kind of has that college connection to it as well, where you're like, oh, Jagger, go away. When you're, sorry, Jagger, go lay down. Sorry. Oh my
Definitely
God.
wants his 5 minutes of fame.
Every time, I swear, it's like the pandemic didn't get it out of him. He's just constantly in front of the camera. He loves it. No, there's that nostalgia people have with Chipotle, especially with their, at college, you try and like get a big meal, have it last you a couple of days. I know it was my hangover cure as well. So it's very near and dear to my heart. So it's crazy that now I'm, working on the menu there.
Yes, absolutely. Super excited to jump in and talk about everything you do there.
Mhm.
But before we jump into all of that, we're gonna take you back, roll back the clock to Decker. So you were there out of pretty much your first like big role out of college. And you started there as a marketing admin assistant. And throughout your time there, you were specifically working on UGG. So tell me a little bit about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really great example of just jumping in and taking opportunities like by the horn. So I'm originally from New Zealand, and I moved out here fresh out of college. I got on the next plane after graduation, and
Why? Why did you
uh,
want to move out here?
it's crazy. Ever since I was young, I kind of just knew it was just like a non-negotiable. I knew I was going to live in the States. I didn't know how. I didn't know, I didn't even know everything in New Zealand about America makes it seem like it's just a movie. So I wasn't even quite sure if it was real or not. But it just happened. And I got this opportunity to move to the States. And at first, I was working in a bar in Santa Monica, and I had studied marketing, and I was really passionate about being creative and working in that business environment. And so I bootstrapped basically my career from the beginning. I walked down Wilshire Boulevard with resumes printed out. I don't think they were
No.
even that great. I had no experience. I was like basically door knocking for jobs at all of the agencies and brands that I could find that were based in LA. And at the same time, I was applying for places like outside of LA too. Like I was that driven to get a job at a notable brand, and I was super interested in fashion as well. So I got a call back from UGG, and I was shocked. I was floored. Like this was the opportunity I've been waiting for, and I think I went into it with the mentality of, I'll take anything. I will clean your storage. I will be your, shoe sample slanger, whatever you need, I will do it. And so for a couple of weeks, like after I got the role, I mean, I met with my boss, Nancy, who was amazing. And she basically decided on the spot, like, this personality is going to fit great with this company. I showed that I was really passionate about it. I would do anything. I will start at the bottom. I'll work my way up. And I think that attitude went a long way with getting an entry level role. So
Yes,
if you kind of have that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to stop and just real
Yeah.
quickly because what you said there is so important. I have so many girls always ask me like, Natalie, I need to get my first job. It's so hard. Like, how do I stand out? And I feel like your example there of like, I walked down the street with paper resumes. In the interview, you didn't have experience, but you're like, I'm gonna work so hard. Like I will do whatever it takes. That
Yeah.
attitude, and I hear from employers all the time is they want someone that's willing to learn and willing to put in the effort. And so I just wanted to highlight that because that's such a great way to stand out. And you had no experience. You're just like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. So I love that.
Absolutely. And yeah, and it was that personality and like willingness that I think, I was prepared to have a lot of people being like, what the hell are you doing? But I was also like, there are a lot of people who were like, oh my gosh, like no one's done it old school like this in a long time. I think a lot of people send emails and just hope for the best.
Yeah.
I was like bringing coffee to people. I would do whatever it took. So I think if you can get in that mindset and you find what you're really passionate about, it doesn't matter what you do. You're gonna do it and you're gonna make sure it happens.
Did you know you wanted to go into marketing, or were you just applying to any job ever and then this job happened to be like a marketing admin role?
I was really focused on marketing and advertising. That was my focus in college. And I think when I looked at what I was really good at and really liked, it was creative, but it was also trying to make money out of creative. So that like naturally pointed me towards marketing. So I felt like it was a good fit. And then I think when you find something that you think you're going to be passionate about, um, you find a way to make it work for your career, and then you try and really focus and hone in on getting that pathway going.
Yeah. And I mean, starting at UGG is a huge accomplishment. Like that's an incredible place to start. And you were there for a long time. You were there for 5 years. So you started off at this admin assistant
Mhm.
role where I'm assuming you were doing very, very basic tasks and then moved up to marketing coordinator and associate. So what did your growth trajectory look like at Decker and at UGG, and how were you able to move up?
Yeah. So when I got into the role, like I said, I started at the very, very bottom. I was getting Diet Cokes for the CEO. I was getting coffee orders. I was slanging boxes. I got really big guns from just like lifting heavy boxes of shoes constantly.
Like, I don't need to go to the gym.
Yeah, exactly. It was like my job. It wasn't glamorous at all. It isn't. The fashion industry is not as glamorous as I think a lot of people expect it to be. I was waking up really early, coordinating samples, doing a lot of shipping, admin stuff. It was a lot, but it was the basics you need to learn just to feel grateful about the people who start at the bottom. It's almost like you pay your dues. And then looking back now, when I work with coordinators or assistants, I have so much empathy and understanding about what they go through. It actually makes it better for your career in the long run, I think.
Yeah, I'm starting at that lower position. And I've heard that too from guests, or even just saying that assistant roles have gone, I don't know if the word is easier, but different as like time has gone by. I know I've talked to people that were like assistants at editorial companies like way back when like you were
Yeah.
literally doing like Devil Wears Prada intern,
Yeah.
like or assistant work. But everyone that has had that role will always tell you that the hard work absolutely pays off and gives you a different perspective. So, like you now, when you are in a management and higher level role and you look at the people that are below you, you can respect the work that they're doing and actually empathize and feel with them and be a better leader and manager because you've done the same work that they have.
100%. Yeah, you're so right. And I think, one of the things that I've started to reflect on now in my career is even the most frustrating times, the hardest times, the times where you're like, I have a degree and I'm going to get a Diet Coke for someone. Like, this is crazy. Honestly, all of those experiences add to the sum of your career at the end. So now that I look back, I wouldn't change any of it. It's taught me so much, even the little things, just being grateful and the gratitude and knowing that you've been through it. Um, the learning opportunities where at the time you might not have really noticed that you were wrong or you didn't feel like you were wrong. But now looking back, like your mindset back then, and that you didn't really know the full story or the picture or know how to handle a situation in a specific way. So I always tell, my teams and people, underneath me now that like there's always a silver lining and it always adds up to something better for you in the long run.
Yeah, you just may not see it then, and that's one of the things I love about when I interview, guests like yourself is that you can tell us that your story now, and you can look back, be like, yes, of course the pieces all connected, but when you're
Mhm.
in it, you have no idea like where it's gonna go, and there's
Yeah,
fear that comes around that is like, is this gonna work out? But what you said is completely right. Like it always does, and you then look back on it and you're like, okay, I understand like why I needed that experience to then end up here, but it doesn't always make sense when you're going through it.
totally.
So you were at Decker for, like I said, 5 years. What is the biggest thing? So you grew there as a marketer, your position, kept growing in marketing. What was the biggest thing you learned as a marketer in this role, or how did your skills grow?
Yeah, it was a lot of communication skills and a lot of interpersonal skills as well. I think, specifically for the fashion industry, there's a lot of personalities. There's a lot of female energy, as you can imagine. And being able to build um, tough skin and know that it's not personal, even when it really does feel personal, was a huge leg up for me. And now I feel like there's nothing that anyone can say that can really penetrate me to the core anymore because I've heard it all. I've heard it all. But again, that is a blessing in itself. And, it taught me a lot about, I think looking back, I've had a very, like, a lot of different leaders at UGG, and some good, some horrific. And I think you learn from both. I learned a lot about how I want to be treated and how I want to treat other people, both from really inspirational leaders who helped people grow and really used or treated their teams as people that they want to shine and do their best work. And then I also learned from people who were the opposite of that. So I think being able to sit back, listen, really observe different leadership styles, no matter what kind of style it is, take the notes, take the mental notes, and really grow from that and apply it to how you want to be a leader.
Yeah, that's great advice for someone if you're not a leader yet and you have a terrible manager, or if you have a really good manager,
Mhm.
taking notes and figuring out, yeah, how you want to lead, and what you like from a boss, what you don't like from a boss. So then when you keep moving forward and up in your career, you have more awareness instead of just being like, oh yeah, I love my boss or I hate my boss, but actually going deeper into the why behind that.
Totally. Yeah, you're so right.
I love that. All right. So you then moved over to Compass as a marketing manager. So can you tell me about your transition there?
Yeah. So I went from UGG, which is like $1 billion company, everyone knows UGG, to basically this startup environment with Compass. So they were relatively new. They're in real estate, so a completely different industry I had no idea about. And I had to get scrappy all of a sudden, and I kind of do have like a naturally scrappy like personality, but this was like limited budgets. Like I have to do everything from like local advertising to brand advertising. I had so much freedom with that though as well. Like my boss there was amazing and he was a realtor. But he kind of knew that he didn't know much about marketing. So he gave me free range to do whatever I wanted. So as scary as that was, because you're like, oh, I'm working for this big company and I can do whatever I want. I don't feel qualified for this. It was really freeing because it allowed me to fail fast, which is the most valuable opportunity you can be given, and then apply those learnings to just continue to grow in your marketing skill set. So it was a crazy transition, but again, added to my arsenal as a marketer in the long run.
Can you talk to me about that failing fast? What does it mean to fail fast, and why is that a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think even today, I think it's the most valuable thing you can learn to do. Um, it's it's having the confidence to try something new that maybe is out of feeling a little risky, out of the norm, trying to put, the bare minimum resources behind it, so you're not like failing at like a huge detriment, but being able to use that hands-on learning experience to understand or deepen your understanding in marketing. So what I do today is like I look at opportunities that maybe haven't been touched on yet, and I'm like, okay. And one example is right now at Chipotle, we do a lot with athletes, and we have a dedicated team for that. And someone reached out to me from the UFC, and we had never touched on the UFC before. And I kind of challenged myself, like, well, why? Why have we not done that? And there's the obvious, answer, because it's like quite violent. But these athletes are the most conditioned athletes. They only eat clean. They're the cleanest in terms of like, you know, restrictions on what they're allowed to do in their field. And I was like, why not? Like, let's try it. So I'm figuring out like a way that we can have like some very small investment to test the waters with maybe some social connection with some UFC fighters and just see what the response is. And it might not end up aligning with the brand. I don't know, but it will be a quick test to see like, is this going to be a winner, or is this going to just be like dead in the water?
Yeah.
So finding those opportunities are so key, because you won't be able to know unless you try.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that's a mentality too you get when you do work at a company where you have more freedom to do things. I
Mhm.
know at larger companies, there's a lot of more hoops you have to jump through before you
Yeah.
can try and experiment with something. But I love the idea of failing fast. I love the idea of you don't really know until you try something. I think it's true for so many things in life. I give it as advice when you're trying to figure out what you want to do in life. Like, go try a
Mhm.
bunch of things, because you're not going to know by just like watching, videos about what other people do. Like, you have to go try those things for yourself. And I think it's the same when it comes to your job or when learning anything in marketing. I know even for Sky Society, we're just there. We like nothing is ever set. Like, we never do anything where we're like, we're not changing this. Everything is always open to being changed. Because if you do a post and it flops, like it flopped. Like, now we
Yeah.
learn. But
Yeah.
and then there's no better way to learn than like what you said, than by trying and failing and being okay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big thing for me is I think my managers or leaders have seen that even just approaching a new idea like that and saying, hey, I'm not sure about this. Here's what I'm thinking the opportunity could be. Can I do XYZ, which will have little to no impact on in the long run, just to test it? Honestly, bringing that kind of thinking to the table, I more times than not, they are so impressed that you're using your initiative and bringing fresh ideas. So sometimes it's a no, and that's because of dedication of resources and what's priority. But a lot of the times, just even showing that you're thinking outside the box is so valuable in the perception of your leadership with what you're providing to the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think what also comes is having confidence. I think you mentioned this earlier of not being, hurt by hearing no, or being, sharing an idea and it getting shot down, not taking that personally. I think that skill is also something that you build by doing that. Because yeah, maybe sometimes I'll say no, or maybe sometimes you'll do the experiment and it fails, but being okay, like having the attitude of, okay, I'm going to try again and try again. And just because it failed once doesn't mean that I'm a failure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we're getting close to Chipotle. So you go over to Bear, the Bear Paint Company. We all know Bear.
Yeah.
You were there for 3 years, and you were doing brands and campaigns there. So can you tell me a little bit about your time at Bear?
Yeah, so Bear was another huge sidestep into a completely different industry. I was moving to Orange County from Santa Barbara, where Deckers is based. And, the brand itself was so highly recognizable. I'm not going to say I was super interested in paint, because I don't think anyone can say that they're like lovers of like industrial and commercial paint. But what it did provide was a huge blank canvas. And what I mean by that is when I met my boss there, Kara, still today, one of the best, most inspiring bosses I've had, she really gave me the opportunity, even in my interview. She was like, look, this is paint. It's like watching paint dry, obviously. But we can make this cool and we have license to do so. And it really opened my eyes to the opportunity. And so working with her was so amazing. And she was the kind of boss that maybe I didn't see it at the time, but she threw me in the deep end. And I was at an age where I thought I was so smart and I thought I knew it all, and I definitely did not. And she forced me to grow and she really challenged me on a lot of things. And she set really high expectations for me. But she also nurtured me through that process. And there were times that I cried for sure. There were times that I was so frustrated. Um, but now looking back, she made me a really, really effective marketer.
You touch on something that I feel like I have also encountered in my past where you maybe it comes from being naive or just younger, but you feel like you not know everything, but you're kind of I want to see this in a way where it's good to have confidence in yourself, but
Yes.
there also sometimes we may think that we know more than we do, and we maybe lose respect for people that are senior or have more experience, right? It's kind of that balance of like, yes, be confident in yourself, but also, you
Yeah.
know, don't be so naive that you think you know everything. How did you find yourself in that position? How can someone maybe identify if they're in a similar space like that?
Yeah, and yeah, it's an interesting thing because yeah, you're right. You don't want to lose that confidence, but at the same time, I think there's an approach that as I reflect, I wish I had taken just to observe first and really see where I fit in and where I need to maybe sit back and learn before I start to suggest. And I've actually seen that more recently in my career as well. And it's a problem not only for juniors, to be honest. I've seen executives do the same thing where they come in super hot, they think they have all the answers, they don't have any of the context or history before they jump in and start to give advice or give direction. And ultimately, it's again a personality communication thing. People really resist to that. So, one tip that I learned was, and it kind of goes with not being afraid to ask questions. I think with that confidence in yourself or that thinking that you know everything, you don't want to ask questions. You want to maintain that kind of level of expertise, I guess. But one thing I learned that was a really great trick was I gave myself permission to ask questions by saying, hey, this might be a silly question, or hey, this might be, not the best idea, but have you thought about this? And it kind of took the pressure off me because it allowed people to say, yeah, here's the answer. Like that was a silly question, but I already knew it. I've already established that maybe it wasn't the best question to ask. So it's not like you're being broken down to size. So I used that technique a lot, and it allowed people to almost want to help as well because you're not coming with this arrogance. It's like you kind of know that you don't know, you're addressing it, and they're more than happy to give you the answer.
This reminds me of a sales strategy or a negotiation strategy from the book Never Split the Difference, where you want to give someone, before you ask someone for something, you want to give them the opportunity to say no to something,
Yeah.
like just so that way they feel like they're, they kind of lets their guard down because they say no. So by you
Yeah.
being like, is this a stupid question? And they're like, no. And then they get to like, go and say yes. And so it's so funny. I was actually just thinking about that the other day of using that negotiation strategy of, yeah, letting someone say no first before you ask them to say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it made me have a lot less anxiety, especially around like, the executive level, because I think you think they expect you to know everything. And when you can act in that way that is a little bit more approachable, I think I think they kind of it's less pressure. It's less pressure. You feel more comfortable. So I use that a lot.
Yeah. And one thing I also say about asking questions, because I think you're right, that is the piece where you cross from confidence to arrogance when you stop asking questions.
Yeah.
And one thing that I forget where, where learned this. I think most of us know this by now, but when you are someone that doesn't show weakness or fault, you become less relatable and just likable overall if you just like fail to show that you are a human, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm too good, I don't need to ask questions, or I'm not going to admit my mistakes. You're right, I'm untouchable. But asking questions, even if you're a boss and you have to ask like someone lower than you for help for something, that allows you look more vulnerable. It allows you to open up to them and them to feel more connected to you. And asking questions is never a sign of weakness.
Right.
It only makes you more strong.
100%. And actually, with my leadership today, I noticed that they do a really good job of asking opinions. So it not only goes from junior upwards, having that ability to ask opinions and ask questions from a higher level makes the other person feel like they're empowered and that their thought process is valid and that they're actually a valuable brain in the room, So I think questions are really, really important and really, really valuable from whatever angle you're coming at.
Yeah, 100%. That was one of the, I think my dad actually taught me that when I was younger. It was like the first thing with all of us kids, he's like, he would always say, ask your way to success. Like the
Yes.
only way you're gonna get some things if you ask for it. Like, and it just seems to go for like when you're on a roll, never be afraid to ask questions. You're never, people aren't gonna think that you're dumb. Like
No,
that's your
they're
own
going to
thought.
think that you're smart.
Yes. The smartest people ask the smartest questions. I think I may have talked about this before, but I remember hearing about this mock interview question. I forget, it was like a big company would, or not mock interview, it was a group interview, and a big company would ask this question. And it was something along the lines of like, there's a natural disaster. How are you going to respond? And how a lot of the applicants, they think they're so smart. So they just start going into exactly how they would respond. But one candidate was like, what's a natural disaster? Is it local or national? Is it
Yeah.
like, asking all of these questions before she then and like gave her
Yeah.
recommendation. She's the one who got the job. And I always remember that. And I always encourage people like ask questions. Like, yeah, I feel like we made our point here.
Yeah.
But yes, I love it. Ask Way to Success. And you went over to Chipotle was your next move, and you've been there for almost 5 years, which is absolutely insane. Congratulations. And your role now is in brand marketing, specifically working on food and beverage innovation, which sounds so much fun. So tell me about your transition over to Chipotle and a little bit about what your role looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chipotle, when they moved from Denver to Newport Beach, they basically started from scratch with their, teams, especially the marketing team. So, when they came over, it's funny. I was approached by a recruiter, and I went in for an interview with my boss, Michael, who's incredible. And I showed up, and it was like $1 billion startup. There were no tables. We would fight over chairs and
Oh
still
my
no telephones. But we were on the 14th floor, and we started calling it like the Fire Festival 14 because it was just like $1 billion startup. But it was awesome. It was that scrappy feeling again, but with the resources. So I got the job there. I was one of the first hires under Michael, who was the director of brand. And it it was really just me, him, and my counterpart Matt at the time. And we were given no direction. It was just complete ambiguity. We were just told to rebuild the brand. And so we kind of looked at each other and we're like, okay, let's start with product innovation. Like we need new news. And so that's kind of where we landed. And it wasn't traditional brand work. It wasn't marketing work. It was getting in the trenches, working with supply chain, with finance, figuring it out. And it's terrifying, but also so rewarding at the same time.
That sounds very, very fun and scary all at the same time. Because obviously Chipotle is a huge company, but I feel like one of the things that still kind of reigns true. I feel that within their marketing too is kind of that scrappiness, or never that you never feel like Chipotle is a giant, like big corporation. They
Yeah.
feel very relatable. And your so specifically specifically with this, so food and beverage innovation, like you mentioned, it's not really traditional brand marketing. It's a little bit different. You're working with all different, we're cross-functionally across Chipotle. I'm curious, what is the very first thing you worked on, or food innovation, and or what was like the first thing that you kind of brought to Chipotle?
Yeah, so there were two things. I can't remember which one came first, actually, but there were two things we wanted to address. We wanted to our queso at the time wasn't hitting the spot. We were getting weird feedback from consumers, and so my first job was to reinvent our queso. And so it's what you see today. It's the queso blanco.
What
It
was it
used to
before? I don't even
it,
remember it
it was
before.
like a more traditional yellow cheese queso.
Okay.
Um, and it wasn't great. So now it's queso blanco has just replaced it. It is by far my favorite thing at Chipotle. I can't get enough of it, which is bad. But that whole process, I mean, going through multiple rounds of tasting different cheeses. I mean, it was disgusting, but it was amazing at the same time. I think I gained like 15 pounds,
From
but
that process, you're like, I
um,
don't regret it because I mean, eating those.
yeah, I was like, it's for work. It doesn't count. Calories don't count. So that was a huge lift, and that was an amazing project. And then the other one at the same time was
Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you because before you go into the other one, I want to get back to queso before we move on.
yeah,
Curious. So you mentioned taste testing, which is I think more traditional like product, but what was maybe more of the brand side or creative side that went into this new product? Because I mean, it wasn't just we changed the flavor and everyone loves it, right? There was, I'm assuming, a lot more behind it. I'm assuming color played a huge role into that as well. So I would love if you could just maybe touch on some of that more creative side of relaunching this thing at Chipotle, which is now very, very popular because that
yeah.
was pretty successful.
No, absolutely. You're right. And it really came down to the consumer. And so as we were kind of analyzing the menu, we noticed that there was a huge opportunity there. So we talked to consumers. We asked them, like, what is the satisfaction with our queso? Or what is your gold standard? Like, what do you think is the best queso out there? And we really like dug in deep with our like loyal consumers, and going through that process, it was important to keep them top of mind throughout the whole, development period. And then, coming out the other side, going and exploring and really making sure that like working with the culinary team, you have to obviously provide a brief and get more specific about what you're asking for and where they want to develop. We had a really wide open, range of what we're looking for. And I think thinking back, we could have tightened that a little bit, but being able to define the freedom to go outside, like the traditional yellow queso, was a huge risk because it takes longer if you're going to open up the floodgates like that. So it just so happened, and I think it was a little bit of luck that they developed queso blanco, and we tried it, and it sparked more of an idea of like, okay, if we're completely going to replace this thing, let's really replace it. Like, let's not just improve it. Let's give them something completely different and say, look, we really did this. Like, we have found queso blanco is going to be better than like queso. And so it actually started to form the marketing direction for this as well. So as we started to head down that path, we were building communications around that. We were thinking about campaign and like, how can we really blow up this impactful moment of going from yellow to white, because I think that's going to be a huge distinctive, noticeable change to Chipotle. And it did feed into the new direction that Chipotle was going in. We wanted to start fresh. We wanted to like rebirth this brand, and show a distinct difference. So it really, I don't know if it was more luck or just strategy, but it all kind of started falling together, and we started to find the direction for this campaign and this new product launch. But it really started with that open mind exploration.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't remember queso before white queso, and maybe because I was younger, but also probably just because it was never something that, yeah, that I would ever get at Chipotle. But then now, then when it came out new, even now that I only when it's a treat day, I get queso on my bowl because I'm a hardcore guac girl, so I'm always getting
Yeah.
guacs. But some days I'll get queso and guac.
Yeah.
But I do think that the white color played a really big impact on it because I know Chipotle too is, with the lifestyle bowls and other maybe that's maybe part of your innovation too. But
Mhm.
it is a healthier, when I eat Chipotle, I feel like I'm being healthier, and having white queso versus yellow queso also makes me feel like I'm eating healthier. So I think the color there was huge.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of baggage tied to traditional queso. So when
Yes.
you flip it on its head like that, it does seem more approachable. And
Mhm.
when you pair it with Chipotle's like for real positioning and clean ingredients and simplified recipes, it kind of lowered the barrier to entry for a queso. So that's why we're seeing so much success with it as well. So yeah, you're spot on there.
And then I interrupted you. You were gonna go talk about another innovation that you think.
Oh yeah. Quesadilla. Like we had never had a new like entree format since the beginning of Chipotle. Like we started to get into the bowl when people were, trying to shy away from tortillas, but that was so early on and we just needed newness. So the natural next thing is like a entree size quesadilla, but we again wanted to do something different, something noticeable. Because we do have, we had the traditional like secret menu quesadilla, but this was meant to be like another, abundant Chipotle entree. So that was a trip too. And then, going, I think this was a really valuable point as well. All of these projects crossed over from marketing and had me really in the trenches with other functions. So if anyone ever gets the opportunity to try a different function for a little bit, or at least peer over the curtain at another function, it is so valuable because knowing more about ops, knowing more about finance specifically, um, makes you such a better marketer because you can understand the context of things, like how you can make this more profitable, how you can make this more operationally viable. Getting that cross-functional insight is the most valuable thing I've ever had throughout these projects.
I love that you mentioned that as well because when we are in marketing, it's easy to get television or just see what you're doing and just want to advocate for, we need more budget here or we need this and that. But it is so valuable to be able to go in and understand how finance thinks about
Mhm.
things, and how sales thinks about things, and product or whatever, all those different departments. I think that you're absolutely right. And then also, I'm assuming it will likely help you when you're moving up in your career because then
Mhm.
you get to understand you're moving up to a manager, a senior, or a director role because you understand how all of those functions work together. So this seems like a very, very fun space to be in, especially with like, hearing these stories from you. I'm curious, you mentioned the quesadilla. Was that launching the quesadilla at Chipotle? Because I know Chipotle also just did like a new campaign where they kind of like redid the quesadilla.
Yeah, so that was launching the quesadilla as like this is a new entree option. More recently, we actually opened up quesadilla to have fajita veggies. So before it was just protein and cheese. So now it was like a fajita quesadilla was now an option. And I personally didn't work on that piece of it with the new launch, but that has been such a successful moment for us. Really leaning into social, leaning into consumer insight, and just making it work. Again, being a little scrappy, figuring it out, seeing the opportunity and just being like, let's throw everything against us and just go for it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? And I give props to my team. Irene, she led that. She killed it. And the social team with their tie-in with the Keith the Dia, I mean, it just was a perfect campaign in and of itself. So yeah,
Yeah, it was
kudos
cool to
to them.
see on social media. And I saw some influencers that I were familiar with be a part of that campaign. So that was really cool. Really,
Yeah.
yeah, that was really cool to see. It's interesting hearing about all this because when someone thinks of Chipotle, they don't think of, I feel like you don't think of food innovation, right? Because it's like Chipotle serves like
Yeah.
rice, beans, and like meat. Like, but it's super interesting to hear how intricate it is, and that the
Mhm.
way that Chipotle is able to serve such few things, because the few things that you do serve, you do really, really well. And then also having the various ways to combine them together, where yeah, you can get a bowl, a burrito, a lifestyle bowl, salad, a taco, a quesadilla. Like you have all your different things. I'm curious, what makes you decide, or so those are two things that you talked about, but how do you identify like, okay, this is the next thing that we're working on, or this is where this product or this, I don't know, I keep calling it product, but
No, you're right. Yeah.
needs
Yeah.
an,
Concept or product. Yeah.
yeah, what is the indicator there that that's the next thing you need to work on?
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of research, and I partner really closely with our research team, consumer insights team. They're a hilarious bunch, I have to add, but they're so smart, and we really dig in with them to find opportunities. And Allie, our consumer insights person, she really keeps a pulse on trends and social listening and seeing what's out there, and looking at, what white space is out there. What are we seeing shift in the industry? She is like the person on the pulse, right? So another thing that I realized is like, I'm not going to have all of these strengths. I'm not going to be a great marketer and a great project manager, whatever, and like a finance guru. So the people who have the strengths where my weaknesses, they are my BFFs. Like I connect with them on a regular basis. I use their brain knowing that my brain doesn't operate that way. So Allie is one of those people that I love working alongside her and picking her brain, being the person that doesn't really know insights as well as she does, and just trying to dig in and find that opportunity space. So that's kind of the process we use. There's a lot of inspirational stuff that we try and do as well. Like a lot of the best ideas come from the weirdest places. So whether we're, out eating, we see or think of an opportunity, or, one of our interns has a really great idea and we start thinking, oh yeah, why wouldn't we do that? I would say inspiration comes from everywhere. And then it's just a matter of pairing that with the business case and showing leadership like, hey, this can make us X amount of money, or obtain like a new demographic, and really just proving that case out is just where the kind of magic and spark happens.
That's so beautiful to hear. And I love the way that you view that, and your perspective on it is very inspiring, and honestly makes everything more fun, which is what makes work more fun and life more fun, your career more fun, of just being open to opportunities, trying new things, asking questions, failing fast. I love it all. And Chelsea, as we wrap up going through your absolutely incredible career journey, what is one last piece of advice you'd like to share with women in marketing?
I would say just take everything day at a time. If things get tough, just remember it's for a purpose, and you're going to learn so much. Even when you think you're learning a lot. So hang in there, and just really be honest with yourself about what you're passionate about, and go after that thing. Especially when you're younger. I think it's the prime time where you don't have any responsibility, that you can really try a lot of things, jump a lot of different industries like I did, go through the learning curves. All of it's going to add up to, a really well-rounded experience. So just go for it. Head on.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you again, Chelsea, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking your time and walking us through your journey today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.